It is only a narrow strip of water. But on March 24, 2026, it sat at the center of a war, an oil panic, and a question every economy on Earth should fear. What happens when one choke point becomes too dangerous to trust? The Strait of Hormuz is the seaborne exit of the Persian Gulf. It lies between Iran and Oman, and in normal times it is one of the most important arteries in the world economy. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, oil flows through Hormuz averaged about 20.9 million barrels per day in the first half of 2025. That is roughly one-fifth of global petroleum liquids consumption and about one-quarter of all maritime traded oil. The same route also carried about 11.4 billion cubic feet per day of LNG, more than one-fifth of global LNG trade. So this is not just another shipping lane, it is one of the pressure valves of the modern world. That is why the events of March 2026 matter so much. As of Tuesday, March 24, 2026, the Associated Press reported that Iran was still targeting Israel and Gulf Arab states even as Washington claimed talks might be underway. The same report said President Donald Trump had delayed a deadline tied to reopening the Strait of Hormuz for shipping. Markets reacted instantly. Brent crude briefly pulled back, then climbed again to around $104 a barrel in morning trading. That meant oil was up more than 40% since the war began on February 28, 2026. When traders hear the words Hormuz, they are not hearing a local headline, they are hearing the possibility of a global price shock. To understand why, we have to look beyond the map. A choke point does not have to be physically huge, it only has to be unavoidable. And Hormuz is dangerously close to being exactly that. The world has pipelines that can bypass part of the route. The EIA says Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates together have about 4.7 million barrels per day of pipeline capacity that can avoid the strait. That sounds large until you compare it with the nearly 20.9 million barrels per day that normally pass through Hormuz. In other words, the bypass can move only a fraction of the system it is supposed to save. If Hormuz is disrupted for long enough, there is no clean substitute waiting in the background. The first hit comes through energy. If tankers are delayed, rerouted, or attacked, crude prices rise. If crude rises, fuel prices follow. Shipping becomes more expensive. Airlines feel it. Trucking feels it. Power producers feel it. Factories feel it. And households feel it last, but hardest, because by then the cost has already moved through the entire chain. A higher oil price is not just a number on a trading screen. It becomes more expensive food, more expensive transport, and more expensive imports. That is how a regional war turns into a daily economic tax on countries thousands of miles away. The second hit comes through insurance and freight. When a route becomes dangerous, ships do not simply keep moving at the same cost. War risk insurance rises, some carriers pull back, some charter rates explode, some buyers delay purchases because they cannot price the risk. That slows the entire machine, and once uncertainty enters shipping, delays start to stack. Ports wait on vessels, refiners wait on feedstock, traders hoard inventory, governments start thinking about emergency reserves. None of that requires a total closure. Even partial disruption can be enough to produce stress across the chain. The third hit is psychological. Markets do not wait for total catastrophe. They price fear early. That is why a threat to Hormuz can move markets before the worst outcome ever arrives. The moment traders believe transit is no longer dependable, they start paying a premium for scarcity. That premium can become self-reinforcing. Higher prices create more hedging. More hedging amplifies volatility. Volatility unnerves buyers. And nervous buyers make already thin markets even more unstable. The result is a system where expectation becomes part of the crisis itself. There is also a geographic asymmetry built into Hormuz. The EIA estimates that in the first half of 2025, about 89% of the crude oil and condensate moving through the strait went to Asian markets. China, India, Japan, and South Korea were the top destinations. That means the shock would not land evenly. Some economies would feel it far more directly than others. The United States now imports far less Gulf crude than it once did. But that does not mean America is insulated. Oil is globally priced. If Asia is forced to compete harder for supply, price pressure can still ripple everywhere. So even countries that buy less directly from the Gulf can still pay more once the market resets around risk. And there is a deeper problem here. Hormuz does not only sit inside energy geography, it sits inside military geography. That makes every commercial voyage vulnerable to political escalation. The AP reported on March 24th that Iran had allowed a small number of ships through the Strait, while saying it would continue targeting vessels linked to the United States, Israel, or their allies. That kind of selective risk is dangerous because it makes shipping unpredictable. When passage depends on who you are carrying for, and what conflict condition exists that day, shipping stops being a transport problem and becomes a strategic gamble. The more selective the threat, the harder it is for companies to plan around it. This is why Hormuz matters more than a normal war zone. A normal war can be geographically contained. A chokepoint war infects systems far beyond the battlefield. It reaches inflation, currencies, central banks, freight rates, manufacturing margins, and food transport. The story is not only about missiles and tankers, it is about whether the operating assumptions of the global economy still hold. Can goods move? Can energy be priced rationally? Can companies sign contracts without baking in extreme uncertainty? Can governments absorb another imported inflation wave after years of instability? These are the real stakes, and the danger is not just a single dramatic closure. A long period of intermittent disruption may be even harder to manage. If the strait opens a little, then tightens again, then partially reopens, buyers cannot relax. They still have to price uncertainty, refiners still have to hedge, shippers still have to protect themselves. That kind of stop-start instability can be more corrosive than one clean event because it keeps the system locked in defensive mode. Investment slows, inventories rise, confidence falls. And once businesses decide the route is unreliable, that judgment can outlast the actual fighting. So when people ask why the Strait of Hormuz matters, the answer is not just oil, it is timing, concentration, and fragility. Too much energy passes through too narrow a corridor with too few real alternatives. That is what turns a regional crisis into a global one. On March the 24th, 2026, the world got another reminder that the global economy is only as stable as the choke points it depends on. And if Hormuz remains a battlefield instead of a corridor, the cost will not be paid only in the Gulf. It will be paid in markets, in supply chains, and in the everyday price of living far from the war itself. Because sometimes the biggest risk to the global economy is not a recession, it is a map